easily. So this is Everything is a Goat by Bill Capra, and this was in Philosophy Now back in 2009. So as always, this is my first time reading it. I am not endorsing this work. Let me know what you think of it. This is a work of published philosophy. So, and here we go. Philosophers can be perverse. Sometimes intuitive, common sense ideas are challenged by clever and apparently compelling arguments that lead to extraordinarily counterintuitive conclusions. And we were just discussing this in chat, how you can get led astray by philosophy, and then sometimes you think things that are not true because your philosophy tells you that, and you didn't go check in the world. Consider the common sense principle that everything is a goat, otherwise known as goatism. This is a simple, intuitive claim about the world, part of our unreflective outlook, something we take for granted but don't ordinarily examine. Yet surprisingly, some philosophers have thought an argument can be mounted against this common sense idea. Indeed, the argument purports to show not just that not everything is a goat, but that it could not be that everything is a goat. This argument begins from a compelling principle. Goats eat everything. So keep that, hold that. Goats eat everything. This principle seems correct. Some animals will eat this and not that, but not goats. They are omnivores. They're omnivorous, the principle that goats eat everything says that they actually do this, not just that they can or might do this. Everything can and everything does go down a goat's throat. Everything is eaten by a goat. Goats are not just omnivorous, but omnivoracious. Yet reflecting on this omnivoraciousness opens up the possibility of an argument. The argument in question is a cosmological argument against goatism. The argument runs as follows. Premise 1. Goats eat everything. Premise 2. Eating is asymmetric. That is, if A eats B, then B does not eat A. Therefore, there is at least one non-goat. Cannabinoid says goats are not that carnivore, though. Well, I mean, they'll eat meat, won't they? I thought they would. Does nothing go down a goat's throat? I mean, I don't know, Luminance. That depends on your ontology of nothing. Now, if nothing is the union of all the negative things, then I would assume so. It could be, the goat could swallow a lot of empty space and burp it up or something. So why wouldn't it be that sort of negation of any massive thing would be a thing? Nothing is a quantifier? Well, it can be. I mean, you can also define nothing in other ways. So, it could be the mereological sum of all the non-things. Then it's not a quantifier, it's a mereological sum. Yeah. Okay. We're reciting the dictionary now? Okay. Oh, dearies. Okay, be nice, folks, in chat. You can agree to disagree even if someone's wrong. Just let it go. If goats eat everything, this applies to goats too, since they are things. Therefore, all goats must be eaten by goats. But goats that do the eating of goats must in turn be eaten by goats. The problem is not with the top of the food chain, but the bottom. Surely there must be something which is eaten, which is not an eater. So there must be something that is eaten by a goat, which is not itself a goat. I mean, maybe it used to be a goat. Maybe there's goat parts. I don't know. Darius says cosmological arguments that God created the universe. Well, we'll see. We're not entirely sure. Now, this is not a creation argument. This only seems to be arguing that everything is goat. So that's not how you haven't slept in 2 days. Conservative. Treat yourself well. Do not be staying up for me. I hope you are get yourself some rest if you can, of course. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Rexler? Please then, conservative, treat yourself well. Chill. Don't get into internet arguments when you're not right in the head. K-Par says it gives goat-wise qualia. Yeah. Alright. So, there must be something that is eaten by a goat which is not itself a goat. I mean, I think goats eat grass. I didn't think grass was a goat. I could be wrong about this. Okay, author shall argue that although this argument is superficially plausible, it is ultimately spurious. Of course, many will already be suspicious of the argument because its conclusion is so deeply counterintuitive. But let us charitably examine the argument for its intrinsic plausibility, recognizing that others may not share our views of what is intuitively plausible. Clearly, premise 1 is unassailable, and remember, goats eat everything. That's true. It is premise 2 that the eating relation is asymmetric, which is the disputable premise. Let us call premise 2 the eating asymmetry thesis, or EAT for short. Okay. Yovko says cosmological arguments are a type of argument that goes from the cosmos or facts about the universe to the existence of something specific being. Here it's a non-goat. Yeah, so usually cosmological arguments are talking about the existence of God, not that God created the universe. Usually if God exists, then it follows from that fact that God would have created the universe. But, depends on your theology, I suppose. Okay. EAT seems to follow from an analysis of the eating relation. If A eats B, then the conclusion of the eating process, B ceases to exist while A remains. Hence the common maxim that it is better to eat than be eaten. Let us distinguish two versions of eat, diachronic and synchronic. Diachronic eat says, if A eats B at one time, then it cannot be the case that B eats A later on. This seems questionable. Surely Jonah might have decided that he would eat his way out of the whale after having been swallowed by it. Of course, given goatism, Jonah and the whale would have been a prophetic and aquatic goat, respectively. It might be said that if Jonah had been eaten properly, which includes some form of digestion, he could not have been intact enough to eat his way out of the whale. But is it a necessary truth that what has been eaten no longer exists? If not, then Jonah might yet persist to some degree, and in a form in which he could eat the whale back, as it were. If Jonah was swallowed by the whale, if that doesn't mean eaten, then, well, okay. Now we're getting into semantics of swallowed and eaten. But they've got a good point here. Just because you're eaten doesn't mean you've been necessarily destroyed. However, suppose for the sake of argument that it is indeed a necessary truth that what has been eaten no longer exists. If eating a thing destroys it, is that clearly the end of goatism? Surely not, for nothing has been said concerning the origins of goats. So long as new goats come into existence to eat whatever eats a goat, there is no difficulty for goatism. There can be an infinite food chain of goats eating goats eating goats. Why should we think that there need be some primal or final non-goat? So let us ignore the diachronic version of eat, since anti-goatism cannot be established with it. Yeah, if it's just goats all the way down, infinite goats, we don't know the nature of the universe. Maybe it is goats all the way down. Alright, yeah. You guys figure out if you guys want to continue this argument. It seems like you guys are not going to have a fun time. Okay. The anti-goatist might now retreat to the doctrine of synchronic eat. If A eats B, then at that time it cannot be the case that B eats A. But on reflection, this also seems to not be the case. One can easily imagine two friendly goat cannibals sitting down to lunch, happily munching each other at the same time. Eventually, there will not be much left apart from the two mouths, two esophaguses, two stomachs, and two digestive tracts. It might appear that there is a metaphysical or perhaps a logical difficulty with continuing eating much or lunch beyond this point. This would be like the difficulty of eating oneself beyond a certain point. Could one eat oneself so that nothing remains? Certainly one can carry on eating oneself forever so long as one takes smaller and smaller bites. There is a potential infinity of bites of oneself or of a fellow cannibal that one can take. But the anti-goatist will ask, can one complete the task and have as it were a completely clean plate, or two completely clean plates? Unreal says, this is a beautiful parody paper. I'm here for it. Yeah, this is very well done. Surely it is intuitively plausible that one cannot completely eat oneself, and that our two friendly cannibals cannot completely eat each other. Intuition says that they can eat quite a lot of each other. They can even carry on eating each other forever, but it is intuitive that they can never finish every last morsel any more than one can eat every last morsel of oneself. If so, the doctrine of goatism is finished, for then goats do not and cannot eat everything, including themselves. However, We should be wary of the role modal intuition is playing in this argument. Severed from empirical science, the question of whether goats can eat themselves is merely an abstruse arcane question of little but academic interest, reminding one of the preposterous discussion in bygone eras of how many angels can fit on a pinhead. You're stuck on a boss in Sekiro is far more enjoyable. I appreciate pulling yourself away from a Souls-like. Yeah. And we're not going to argue on the definition of what counts as a Souls-like. Yeah. Whatever intuition might or might not have to say, it is simply part of the goatist outlook that one can completely eat oneself and that friendly goat cannibals can finish eating lunch. Okay, so we're just going to define the metaphysics in such a way that you could somehow swallow yourself, like in whole. I don't know how that would work, but like, yeah, the digestion would be complete. So you would have complete digestion in some way. You know, is that completely implausible? I don't know. Like, maybe you can, like, you know, just sort of have, like, the digestive fluids, like, digest every last bit of you and then just dissipate themselves. Okay, so it's by definition. So they're biting the bullet on this one. Just keep that in mind. Hey, Rethius, how are you? I hope you're having a good day. What's up? We're reading this paper on goatism. Everything is a goat. I was a goat parent. Well, that's nice. Yes, exactly, Rexler. It's a Klein bottle of digestion. And you can see that, like, it's not the craziest idea that maybe there's some strange way that we could actually completely self-digest. I'm glad to hear that, Rethius. Yeah. What's it called? I mean, there's, like, self-combustion. You might be able to, like, you know, do everything. I've heard that everything becomes a crab with evolution, but never a goat. Well, goats don't evolve. Goats just are in this universe. Everything is a goat. So, although it may evolve through some crab form, it's still a goat. So, yeah. This is more of metaphysics than biology. Okay, once one has embraced goatism, any intuitions rooted in a previous non-goatist paradigm can be rejected as unreliable. And you can see this is a little bit dogmatic, though. I mean, at this point, you have to, like, this is just dogmatism here. Did Terry Pratchett write this? No, it looks like someone named Bill Capra, and chat has informed me that Capra actually means goat. And what's funny is, was the Capra demon a goat in my Souls people here? Okay. Such intuitions should go the way of equally dubious intuitions concerning simultaneity once one has embraced relativistic space-time. One cannot simply assert the existence of a possibility or an impossibility when what possibilities or impossibilities obtained lie downstream from the correct metaphysics. So the intuition that it is impossible for two friendly goat cannibals to complete lunch cannot be used in support of synchronic eat. Yovko says, really dogmatic, but it's just common sense philosophy. Well, I mean, that's the point, is that if you accept the common sense that everything is a goat, or that goats eat everything, then it follows. But yeah. And here's one hand, here's another. Exactly. Just goats eat everything, so it follows. Alright. Moreover, it's not just that the anti-goatist appeal to intuition is dialectically empty, but also that science itself provides positive support for the possibility of self-eating goats. Some might argue that the existence of a goat that can consume itself would conflict with physical conservation laws because mass energy would not be conserved in the space-time locality where the self-eating occurs. After lunch, there would be missing mass and energy. Oh, so this is like the black hole evaporation problem. So information loss. So if any of you guys out there know a little philosophy of physics, black holes eventually evaporate and then they disappear out of existence as far as we can tell in the universe, and the information that they had gets lost with them. And this is a problem for the direction of time, because we will have a physics in our universe that will have lost information, and so our physics will have to go back in time, but it won't be able to go back in time past when that black hole disappeared. So this is the black hole information paradox. So I didn't know it was also in the goat metaphysics, but it is. Consider Rethius an anti-goatist. You have to be careful there, yeah. I think we've got some heretics. I mean, some zealots in chat. Yeah, it says Billy the Goat. Okay. So yeah, after lunch there would be missing mass and energy. But this takes a narrow view. It is widely thought that there is gradually increasing entropy in the universe. Postulating the existence of self-eating goats would help explain that fact. Furthermore, there is a more direct scientific confirmation from the existence of black holes. Ha ha ha! I knew where this person knows what, I knew what this person was doing. Contemporary physics suggests that black holes are self-eating goats, for the way energy implodes in a black hole is what one would predict as a self-eating goat nears the end of its lunch. Most goats, of course, do not eat themselves. Only a few do. Most goats are content to eat other goats, but the goats that do eat themselves are plausibly identified with black holes. Contemporary science confirms goatism. So there we go. So this is the whole point, is that the black hole information paradox is just evidence that everything is a goat. Conservative: to eat oneself like the snake or lizard eating its own tail is usually applied not as a biological reality. I would have thought it's illustrative, poetic in the domain of analogy and metaphor. Yes, but clearly you're not a very good goatist then. You have to get up on your goat metaphysics, conservative. I don't know what you were... I don't know where you were raised, but you got to get better at your goatism. Alright, so we've got the Nog Oro also. So yeah. And if you can't see that, it's a better TTV, look below me and you can see I got my little Ouroboros emote there. Yeah. Since we have no good reason to believe either the diachronic or synchronic version of eat, and indeed some reason to reject them, it follows that the cosmological argument against goatism fails by helping itself to what it needs to show, Clearly, goats eat everything, but we have not been given any reason to believe that the eaten cannot eat the eater, or that the eater and the eaten cannot be one and the same. Goatism is the most deep and ancient idea of all, exactly. Although the cosmological argument fails, it is not wholly without value, for it does alert us to the metaphysical and gastronomic dependency relations that obtain between the items which comprise the ultimate furniture of the universe. Ours is not a flat world, but a structured and nuanced world. Ours is not a world of metaphysical egalitarianism. Some goats are more equal than others. In particular, it is not the case that all goats that are eaten are the goats that eat them. Note that this argument does not obviously yield the conclusion that there is one primal goat, the great goat, which eats other goats but is not itself eaten by them. The world might consist of an infinite tower of goats standing on the back of goats standing on the back of goats, and so on. I mentioned this earlier. You can have an infinite chain of goats. Yeah. Each eating the goat on which they stand. There is a great goat would be a further claim. The great goat would be a goat no other goat eats, although it eats itself. So this would be the unmoved mover, the god of gods, whatever you want to call it. Whether there is a great goat is a deep and important matter which must await further investigation. But for the present, we can be satisfied to have rebutted an apparently attractive argument against the common sense thesis that everything is a goat. Rithia says, this is so absurd, I love it. The goat that goats itself, exactly. The goat goats, yes. Speaking for myself, I believe in the great goat, although I admit candidly that this is a bold conjecture. The idea is that as the universe unfolds through time, goats come into existence and eat other goats, which eat other goats, but there eventually will be just one goat remaining. Yeah, so this would be like the heat death of the universe, just the one last goat. After all, almost all the goats have been eaten by goats. There will be one last goat, the great goat, which has directly or indirectly eaten all the other goats. This great goat then eats itself, and with that, the world ends. In current physical theory, the end of everything is known as the Big Crunch, but it might be better called the Big Munch or the Big Lunch. As I say, this is a bold conjecture, for given what we now know, it is possible that the universe will collapse into two cannibal goats who eat each other, or even a veritable banquet of mutually eating cannibal goats. It could be like an infinite chain of goats, for that matter. So that would be more like a self-evolving universe. There will be a last lunch. For the goatist, the only question is, how many goats will turn up at the last lunch for the Big Munch? That is a good question. And as always, we now rate the paper. Okay, you have to go to bed, Darius. Thank you, stop by. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Conservative says, if I mean for applying this to human experience and human condition, then I can think of all manner of ways we can describe the tendency to destroy ourselves, cause our own demise. It's the heat death of the universe, man, and like human nature is inherently flawed, puts on his bandana. Yeah, go for it, dude. Lumen says, yeah, we're not applying. This is empirical reality. Exactly. Capra says, I for one suggest we find a way to fulfill the prophecy of the great goat as fast as possible. Rodern, what's up? I wish that was longer. Yeah, I know. But this is what we were arguing earlier. Yovko was like, why don't you just read all the good papers? I'm like, I don't know all the good papers. I can't find them. And like, this one was a great paper. It was only a few pages long. What are you going to do? So it's like, yeah. So Capars, thanks for rating. Yeah, I think this is like deeper ancient ideas. I think Nagoro is appropriate here. I'm going to give it 2 Nagoros. Maybe a Scream. Yeah, so like there, and yeah, definitely Brain Dance. Give it 2 Brain Dance. So like this is but I mean, as always, the rating is entirely up to you. If you didn't like it, let me know. So as always, Brain Dance. If you had fun ideas, make it Brain Dance. Now Scream for existential artistic drama. I mean, this definitely was talking about like how we are oriented to the entire universe. Nagoro for deep ancient ideas. So it's like, yeah, I mean, this is basically the fundamental goat. Nog knife slicing and dicing arguments. Plausibly this could be like a knife. Yes, thank you, Unreal Brian. Thank you, Rexler, for your rating too. Yeah, so like this is it's providing argumentation. It's good. Nog navel gazing only for academics. Clearly this is more common sense philosophy, not only for academics. Nog turd all style no substance, still poop underneath. Obviously, this is like all substance no style. And Nog grapes for big claims that shrivel up. No, I mean, I feel like the conclusions did follow. I mean, this is my opinion. Again, if you want to you disagree, let me know. You could also use the global vote yay and vote nay of Twitch just for a positive and negative rating, and my vote meh. Note anything in the green will make the overall score I give it go up. Anything in the red will make it go down, and the vote meh actually makes everything go towards the middle. Lumens, wow, that's a lot of ratings. Thank you. Conservative says, we could talk about entropy in human cells. Yeah, we could. Blah, entropy, yeah. Frank's I think a bit naively. Who would take a wild hypothesis, not even not that everything is a goat seriously? I mean, that is a good point, Frank. Like, if you want to give it a navel gazing, like, go right ahead. Like, that isn't a fair argument. That, like, this is too, even for, like, me, who has argued about that this is a hand many, many times on stream and published on the topic. Even for me, this is like too fundamental, and like I wouldn't even bother arguing that everything is not a goat. I mean, this is a hand is a very particular claim. Everything is a goat should just be obvious, but yes. It would be very funny if there's the highest rated paper on the site. Yeah, I mean, it's possible it could be. Like if we spam the emotes enough, it would be. Consider if entropy is real, then your goat is real. I mean, that's the whole point. Everything is goat. Here is a goat. Here's another goat. Yes, that is goat. Frank got a goat right there. Entropy is real. There we go. QED, what we meant to show, and we've shown it. Bill Capra ruminates at the CHVR Institute. I wonder what the CHVR Institute is, if that is anything. Yeah. This is K-Par's go. All right, so we only get. I think we've got a bunch of ratings in. I thank you all for coming by for that. Maybe we can read another very short paper or something. But like, yeah, get your rating if you want to get your rating in. Now's the time. All of the brain dance feels hypnotic. Yeah, I'm pleased with that emote, Rexler. Is a goat made up of smaller goats? Well, I mean, it definitely has eaten other things, and since goats are everything, then, like, yeah, I would think the goat mereology is just more goat. Yovko says, one person is most potent, another is most tolerance, and one which doesn't conclude with no goats is always less convincing. I mean, that's the problem. Why? It's not so much it's not a question of logic. This is common sense. Like, everything is goat should be common sense, like that goats eat everything and everything just follows. So we're not doing, like, there is a question of logic here, but that's not, this is more fundamentally ontology. This is a cosmological argument, which is talking about the ontology, what exists, and everything is a goat is talking about what exists. It's not logic. So yeah. Is the goat or the consumption more fundamental? Yes, K-Pars. Okay, well, thank you all for getting your ratings in, and let's go. That was probably one of the top rated papers we've had in a long time. I do kind of want to know who this Bill Capra is, and like, have they written anything else? Like, oh, look at this. Oh, we've read other Bill Capra stuff. We read The Metaphysics of Farts. This was another good paper we've read from them.